they hadn't lost their identity at all.
Yeah.
That's the remarkable thing. The captives had done everything to try and erase their identity, including their faith, and they hadn't succeeded. Because there was something inside them that gave them an identity that was beyond the nation that they were born in, or the occupation that they had, or even the names that they had been given. An identity that they had by nature of their connection with God.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 7 of the All Nations Church podcast. I'm James Aubrey, joined again by Kier Adams.
Hello, James.
And our new best friend, Chris Hamer-Hodges.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
We are looking in this series at the book of Daniel, and we've already had a fantastic introduction to the book from Chris, and we're now going to dive in to the first chapter and the first story of the book of Daniel.
Excellent.
Where, as I mentioned at the end of our last episode, we find Daniel at Babylon University. So, Chris, perhaps you could just give us a little bit of a background and context to where we find ourselves in Daniel chapter 1, even if it slightly repeats what we talked about in the previous episode, and then give us an understanding of what happens in Daniel chapter 1.
Sure. So the context is the book of Daniel picks up at the kind of last stage of the kingdom of Judah. So the kingdom of Judah has kind of gradually fallen into decline with wicked kings. The prophet Jeremiah has prophesied that the nation will go into exile in Babylon for 70 years. And at the beginning of the book of Daniel, we see the start of the fulfillment of that prophecy, that Nebuchadnezzar comes, he besieges Jerusalem, and the initial captivity of the best of Judah is taken into Babylon, and among those are Daniel and his 3 friends. And so they find themselves transplanted, taken away from their homes, their lives, their families, their culture, and starting a completely new life in a pagan city with pagan traditions, worship of other gods, deep-rooted superstition and astrology, and they get incorporated into the royal palace and have to learn these traditions and have to prove themselves that they can perform this new job as astrologers and wise men. And we find, as you say, Daniel and his friends starting their period of instruction or indoctrination, assimilation into Babylonian culture. And yet we find here that although Daniel is and his friends prove themselves in their aptitude in picking up some of these new skills, they also set a limit and say there are some things where they are unwilling to compromise. And Daniel 1 is like the story of that first stand that they take.
So before you tell us the story in earnest, let me just ask you a couple more questions about the culture that they've come from and the culture they go to. So it seems from the get-go that Daniel and his friends are devout.
Yes.
They seem entirely devoted to God, despite the fact that they've come from a city and a culture that largely has abandoned God.
That's right. Yeah.
So do we have any idea of where that might come from? Is it from the influence of Jeremiah? Is it from the influence of a previous good king like Josiah? Do we have any idea of kind of how there could have been a faithful remnant within such a kind of unfaithful
I think we get clues that even in the darkest of times of the period of the kings, there has always been a remnant that have been faithful. We see this, I guess, most clearly in the time of the prophet Elijah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah, I get that.
So Elijah thinks he's the only one.
Yeah.
And we kind of read that story where Elijah almost, from his moment of greatest triumph on Mount Carmel, we have the kind of almost where he throws his toys out the pram and decides to give up, and he runs off and he encounters God in the cave, and God says to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he says, only I am left." And yet God says, I've reserved these thousands who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So we see that, and I guess that's a lesson for our time as well, and a key for looking, when we look at church history, is to realize that even in the darkest times, God has always had people who have remained faithful and true.
Yeah. And then just so Daniel's taken from Jerusalem, he's taken into Babylon, he's kind of assimilated into the culture.
Yes.
It looks effectively like he's being prepared to become a kind of a civil servant, a Mandarin type, isn't it?
That's right.
So what likelihood is there, possibility that he and his friends have also been made eunuchs? Is that a likely possibility as well?
It's something that people have considered.
Okay.
Because one of the prophecies is that your sons will serve as eunuchs in the kingdom that they're taken away to. So it's a possibility. However, the book of Daniel makes no mention to that. No
mentions, okay.
And it does explicitly refer to others as eunuchs. So even in Daniel chapter 1, it explicitly mentions that the man who is given charge over Daniel and his friends is a eunuch.
Okay.
But it makes no such reference. So
that's useful to know.
So, yes, the jury's out on that.
Jury's out on that one. That's our first bit of speculation on the podcast. There we go. Was he not? It doesn't matter. So tell us the story of Daniel chapter 1. What actually happens in Daniel 1?
So in Daniel 1, Daniel and his friends find themselves, as you say, in Babylon University, learning the pagan culture and kind of being trainee astrologers, which would have been completely alien. Right. They've been stripped of their culture. They've been stripped even of their names. They've been given new names. So basically, everything that they would have given them identity, their upbringing, their nationality.
Yeah.
Their occupation, even their names, everything has been taken away. It's like they have this completely fresh slate, and yet, even though they're complying and they're doing well in their studies, they draw the line over something that they consider would defile them, which is eating the king's food. So the king has kind of assigned them all a portion of food, and we don't know explicitly what it was, whether it included pork or whether it was because there had been some ceremony where it had been offered to one of the Babylonian gods, but this kind of cuts them to the heart, and they say, no, this is where we're going to draw the line. We'll comply up to this point, but this is something that we're not going to negotiate on. And we find that Daniel and his friends take a stand and decide not to defile themselves by eating from the royal food.
And what happens next?
Well, the eunuch, as we've said, who is in charge of them, is rather worried because the reason they are given a portion of the royal food is seen as a perk. It's kind of, why would you decline this? We're giving you the best food so you can have the best opportunity to become the best and rise to the highest levels in Babylonian society. So it doesn't make sense to the eunuch why they would refuse what he considers to be the best. And so Daniel has to say, well, let's put a test. Let's do this scientifically, if you like.
Yeah.
Let's assign a period, 10 days. During this period of 10 days, all the others will eat the king's food, and we will eat the food which we find acceptable. And judge for yourselves at the end of those 10 days whether we seem emaciated or weak, or whether we seem rugged and robust. And they do this, and at the end they find that Daniel and his friends, by making this stand, are not only no worse, but actually they're considered to be 10 times better than all the wise men in Babylon. So by making a stand, it's like that God rewards them.
Very good.
And even in saying that from the get-go, is it fair to say that we're already starting to see a glimpse of the kingdom of God in that? Because of course, if you think about the way the kingdom is described in the New Testament, like leaven, that goes out and it leavens the dough. Then you think, actually, what's happening here is there's a there's an internal kingdom, if I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Something inside these people that then they say, we're going to live this way.
Yes.
And then it has an impact on the people around them. It has an impact on the culture around them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. I think that's a great demonstration. It shows that actually they hadn't lost their identity at all.
Yeah.
That's the remarkable thing. The captives had done everything to try and erase their identity, including their faith, and they hadn't succeeded. Because there was something inside them that gave them an identity that was beyond the nation that they were born in, or the occupation that they had, or even the names that they had been given. An identity that they had by nature of their connection with God. And that was something that could never be taken away and never be erased.
I like that.
And I think that shows that our greatest identity comes not from what we do or even our names or our nationality, all these things that people in the world find such a strong affinity with, but actually our greatest identity comes through our relationship with God.
Yeah, I love that.
Very good.
And I love this story. I love Daniel chapter 1, despite the fact that on the face of it, it does seem to be slightly less dramatic than the other stories.
Indeed.
I mean, there are no death threats. The king plays a much more secondary role compared with the other stories where emperors and kings are much more at the forefront. But it does seem to me to kind of set everything up for the rest of the story, doesn't it? This is Daniel taking a private stand. Where in later years he's going to make much more public stands, isn't he?
Yes, indeed.
So what have you found that this story in particular teaches us about Daniel's character? What the kind of things that we tease out of this that kind of help us see how he's going to be successful in the future?
Yeah. So first of all, as I said, I think it shows his unshakable connection with God, and that although he's willing to learn Babylonian culture, he's unwilling to compromise in his personal faith and his personal relationship with God. I think it also shows the value of good friendship, because Daniel, in making a stand, makes things better not just for himself, but his three friends also prosper because they have Daniel as a friend. And I think that shows that as important as our personal relationship with God is, we can't do it on our own. We need fellowship. We need connection. We need good friends. If the friends that we choose are so important. They can either build us up and encourage us, or they can corrupt us and bring us down. And we see that Daniel's three friends made a great choice in having Daniel as a friend. They prospered because Daniel prospered.
They did.
And so I think it shows his leadership as well.
Yeah. And you spoke in the first episode of the series that one of, if not the major theme of the book of Daniel is that tests come.
Yes.
They don't last forever.
Yes.
And the righteous endure them and come through them.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
this would be a good example of a test, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
In fact, is that the kind of language Daniel 1 uses? Test us and see how it goes.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's a test. I mean, I think it's slightly different in that this is a self-imposed test.
Yes.
And the other tests that come aren't necessarily self-imposed. But it shows that same theme, that each test is kind of numbered even before it begins. And we'll see that numbers play a really big part in the book of Daniel. Can't always understand and unpack them, but just the fact that they are numbered is significant, because it means that no trial lasts forever. I think that's often a source of discouragement for people who are in the middle of a trial. The kind of lie of the enemy is it's going to be this way forever. And it's a huge encouragement to know that trials have been numbered by God even before they begin. So
I like that.
And I think it shows in Daniel as well. Like you said, this is almost a self-initiated test.
Yes.
It shows a willingness to face lack in pursuit of what he believes is right.
Yes.
In pursuit of what he believes God has given him to do. He's not just... he's not begrudging the test in that sense. He's not saying, oh, well, this has happened, I wish it wasn't. But actually, he's also willing to reflect on what could be seen as a very positive situation. Oh, well, I'm getting the king's food. I'm getting well looked after. he could say, well, the Lord is blessing me in this land.
Yeah.
But actually, instead, he says, no, I know what's right, so I will impose this upon myself. And there's almost, in his character, it seems there's a willingness to say, I'll face lack because I know what's right, which sets him up well for when that happens almost to him as well then.
Yes, and I think that also sets the theme, not just for the book of Daniel, but also the nature of all trials, really, in that it's always better to go through a trial in faith than to avoid a trial through compromise.
I like that.
Wow, very good.
I like that.
Yeah, really good.
Every now and then Chris will say something that I think I'm going to say that and pretend it was mine. I love that. And I've always been really struck by Daniel's kind of approach to this challenge.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world where protest is a very, very popular form of communication.
Yeah.
Hunger striking or placarding, writing letters or, standing outside buildings, whatever else like that.
Yeah.
And, protesting is a very, very popular way of doing things. And yet I find here, and obviously, Daniel can't protest in the way that people can do in modern democratic societies, because as we find out in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar's favourite way of dealing with people was tearing them limb from limb and turning their houses into dung heaps. Dictatorships give you less freedom, obviously, don't they?
Indeed.
But nevertheless, Daniel's approach to this is to make a request.
Yes. Yeah.
He makes a request.
Yeah.
And I find the fact that his request is honoured.
Yes.
Is not only a good telltale sign that he's a man of favour. Mm-hmm. That whole notion of having favour before God and men shows us, I think, later on in the book how prayerful and powerful his prayers are.
Yeah.
But I do also think that gives believers, even in the modern day, a kind of a way to approach situations in our culture that may trouble our conscience.
Yes.
I don't think protest is necessarily the way of the kingdom, but I think appealing to an authority and being offered to be put to the test
that's really
I
good,
think that can work in any culture, because I think it's a principle of the kingdom.
That's really good.
I really like that. I think that's such a good challenge for us now, isn't it? Particularly with the advent of everybody has a voice on social media.
Yes.
There's platforms where we can all say something, and often the challenge with social media is it can become very negative very quickly.
Yes.
And you can interject in something that in some ways you don't actually have any right to. Yeah. Or, as you're describing, as a child of God, you have no need to.
Yeah.
So, and that, I think what you're saying is really helpful.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us that we're not the ultimate judge and authority.
Yeah.
I don't need to fight for something because God is fighting on our behalf. Yeah. I just need to be faithful. And I think that's a real encouragement to us to think, okay, what is it that we're facing now that might not look like a Nebuchadnezzar, but actually I can look at myself in light of current world events or cultures or societal challenges and say, how am I going to trust that in God I can be tested and proven because of him? So really good.
Yeah.
And if the theme of the book is kind of enduring trials being proven, I think a similar one seems to be that humility leads to exaltation.
Indeed.
And it's the thing I love about this story, and then the stories we'll talk about in future episodes. Daniel and his friends, they never just kind of scrape through, do they?
No.
They often come through not only unscathed, but glorified in some way.
Yes.
They always get promoted at the end of the trial, don't they?
Yes.
And we seem to get a clue of that in terms of how their qualities and skills that they have at the end of the chapter.
Yes.
So they're better than everyone else, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. 10 times better, an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting there, because I think, how could they tell it was that they were 10 times better?
That's a good point. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, did they score 100% and everyone else only scored 10%?
Yeah.
But I think it's this idea that they were an order of magnitude better.
Yeah.
A multiplication of skill, not just a slight bit better. But as you say, when you talk about the intertext, whatever phrase you used of the Bible interpreting itself, we see that 10 is in the test itself. They were tested for 10 days and then they come out 10 times stronger. Yeah, so it's in the text, it's making that connection that it was the trial itself that allowed them to come through.
Yeah.
And I think we see that taken up in the New Testament, where it talks about the refining of our faith, and that should be a way that we can almost rejoice in our testing, because it produces this refining of our faith that we won't just muddle through, but we'll come out stronger and better. We'll come out more mature. We'll come out with our faith of greater substance and revealing a closer reflection of the image of God, because we have been faithful through the trials that we've encountered.
I like that. And we get the first clue at the end of that chapter too, don't we? That there's something special about Daniel. He's described as someone who can interpret dreams.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Which I think is unique in comparison with his contemporaries, isn't it? So that's going to set us up very nicely for our next episode, where for the first time Daniel encounters the need to interpret someone's dream, and it's not a friend.
No,
it's not even a jailer in a prison like Joseph had. It's day one. Got to interpret a dream for the most important man alive on the entire planet. Nothing like that in your intro in your first day. So thanks guys, thanks Kier, thanks Chris.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back for Daniel chapter 2 in our next episode, which will be with you very soon. Bye.